Hello. Good morning. Appreciate you being here this morning. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Subscribe to the channel. Yeah, it looks a little dark in here today. I don't know why. Isn't that weird? Is the sound back? Let me know in the comments section. Subscribe to the channel. I was saying good. The Minnesota church, they released a statement. Okay. This church that was stormed by the anti-ICE agitators. They released a statement, and if the DOJ doesn't do anything, sounds like the church is going to do something, whether that's lawsuits or a different legal avenue. They're gonna do something. It sounds like, according to the statement. So we're gonna get to that. Go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We are also going to talk about global politics here. A lot of people have been calling me, asking me, like, hey, is Greenland going to become a 51st state? I sure hope not. I hope it becomes like a territory, U.S. territory. Of course, we definitely need Greenland. Yeah, but the 51st state thing, I don't want any more senators or congressmen. I don't want to deal with another state being an open rebellion of the United States, like Illinois and Minnesota, and California, blatantly. Saying screw you to federal immigration laws. Yeah, I don't want to deal with it being another state. I'd be okay with it joining. I think we have like 15 U.S. territories right now. So Greenland's prime minister came out and he's sounding the alarm. United States, the Americans are coming. The Americans are coming. And he sounds the alarm and he says that they should plan for an invasion, as if Donald Trump is going to direct the U.S. military to bust in people's houses, women and children, and scare them and take over their houses. Yeah, okay. Pipe down over there. I think you're being a bit of an alarmist, Mr. Prime Minister. Greenland, it is an autonomous sort of project of Denmark, by the way. They want sovereignty, but they don't even really have it right now. Denmark is kind of a terrible, and historically has been terrible to Greenland. The United States would treat Greenland much better. So we are going to get to that. Subscribe right now. We are also going to get to Don Lemon and this church invasion. And I think that this invasion could serve as a tipping point for our country. Okay. You guys know how frustrated I am with Pam Blondie and the DOJ. And this is really going to be a tipping point here. Are we going to uphold the rule of law in this country? And I think that this is the tipping point. If there are not charges brought against Don Lemon, I am going to be pissed. Many Americans are going to be pissed. And Trump's going to lose his base by keeping Pam Bondi on. Okay, if there are no charges filed. So, all right. I also want to get to some Illinois news today. This state audit. Diane Benjamin. Do you guys know who Diane Benjamin is? She has an incredible blog. It's called blnnews.com. Go check it out. I actually stumbled upon the state audit. She just published it. The state audit that exposed really a decade or so of non-compliance at Illinois State University. So they're in non-compliance with several laws, including federal laws, according to this state audit. And taxpayers, we keep forking up dollars. I think just recently, like $80 million went to ISU. And you tell me how that's fair. They don't follow laws. They're in non-compliance with laws. They're not protecting student data. They're at risk for cybersecurity hacks. Okay, and this is what the state audit found, the Illinois auditor. Okay, so they found this out. Okay, it's not me, good old Cat, saying that they're not running a tight ship over there. It's the auditor general. Okay, so they're out of compliance, and they've been out of compliance and have had repeat offenses that stretch back to 2011. But yet you're asked to keep paying for their stupid pet projects, and the taxpayers just keep paying when they can't even get the basics right. That's what pisses me off. All right, let's get to the anti-ICE agitators. They thought it was a great idea to storm a church, private property, in the middle of service. and they wanted to push their anti-ICE agenda. And they apparently, and this has not been confirmed, I don't even think that this is true. Usually if something like this were to be true, it'd come out by now, but there was a connection to ICE. They believed that the pastor was connected to ICE in some weird way. I still have yet to see that connection be made. So they went in there screaming, disrupting. And for people who aren't as tuned in as maybe you and I are, you're a conservative cat watcher, subscriber, hopefully. For the people who aren't as tuned in, this is a disgraceful look. Okay. People trying to pray and then, you screaming in their faces. It's disgraceful. It's shameful. And it has exposed how crazy, how extreme these people are. And it exposes them to people who might not have been as in tune or didn't understand it. Now they know that these anti-ICE agitators are a bunch of dingbats. Okay. So in addition to being wrong about ICE, if you're screaming in a church, frightening children, you are not a good guy. Okay. If you are pro-open border, against national sovereignty, you're not the good guy in this equation. If you're screaming in the faces of children while they're praying, you're not the good guy in this equation. The White House put this video out there, and then I'll also talk about what the White House had said in this X post. Take a look.
Renee good! Renee good! Renee good! Renee good! Renee good! Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are your people? Why are you not at Whipple every day fighting for the humanity? Standing for our people. Where are you? You drink your coffee, you got your jewelry, you have your nice clothes, but what do you do? What do you do to stand for your Somali and Latino communities? You have no comment. Exactly. Renee good. Renee good.
All right, I think you guys get the gist. Just as a refresher for you, the White House did post that on their X account, and they said, make no mistake, ICE is arresting the worst of the worst, criminally illegal aliens, gang members, murderers, rapists, and drug dealers, removing them from our streets. Then they said, the brave men and women of ICE are true patriots. The raid at the church in Minnesota was horrible and unacceptable. The DOJ has launched a full investigation. I'm sorry, but what have you got to investigate right now? Okay, charge them. Okay, and then on top of that, we've got video upon video upon video of former CNN personality Don Lemon, who was fired because of his misogynistic comments directed at Nikki Haley. He was there. And there's just videos of him trying to smear these innocent congregants, these innocent churchgoers. There's videos of him now saying that they're entitled, that Christianity is rooted in white supremacy. And he was on with a podcast host. Her name was Jennifer Welch. And he disparaged Christianity. He said that type of Christianity is, connected to white supremacy, or, I'm paraphrasing, but I mean, this was disgraceful. Now the church, City's Church in St. Paul, they've released a statement. And this is the new news. So you are getting it first here at the Conservative Cat Show, because we're on really before any other podcaster gets up in the morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. And you're going to get this first. So it's a statement that they released. and they took this terrible, shameful, disgraceful invasion, and they took it as an opportunity to talk about Jesus. And I just love that. And they explained some things that the agitators, obviously the protesters didn't quite understand. And you have to hand it to them because they are taking an opportunity to put Jesus out there. Okay. They're taking this disgraceful incident, this disgraceful invasion, and they're using it as a way to talk about Jesus. And I love that. They called the action shameful. But here is the statement. I'll just read it for you. Jesus is real. Period. That's how the statement opens. When we gather on Sunday mornings to worship him, we are gladly giving ourselves to what is most central and sacred in our life together. We worship Jesus, stretches as the main banner of our church alongside two other banners that flow from it. One says, loving one another and seeking the good of the Twin Cities. Right. So the statement goes on. It says on Sunday, January 18th, a group of agitators jarringly disrupted our worship gathering. They accosted members of our congregation, frightened children, and created a scene marked by intimidation and threat. Such conduct is shameful, unlawful, and will not be tolerated. Invading a church service to disrupt the worship of Jesus or any other act of worship is protected neither by Christian scriptures nor the laws of this nation. Right. So he's saying, this invasion, not protected by law, not protected by the Christian scriptures. The statement goes on. We welcome respectful dialogue about present issues and about the realness of Jesus as revealed in the Bible. Provides the only final answers, the Bible that provides the only final answers to the world's most complex problems. Okay. So they're willing to have a conversation about sovereignty and about illegal immigration as it's revealed in the Bible. Jesus Christ, the divine Son of God, lived, died, and rose again for the rescue of all who put their faith in him. He offers a love that transcends cultures, borders, policies, and politics. As those who have been loved and rescued by him, we will not shrink from worshiping Jesus, nor will we stop teaching and proclaiming the good news that Jesus is the Messiah. Church buildings are meant to be places of peace, solace, where worshipers can hear and live out this message. We therefore call on local, state, and national leaders to protect this fundamental right. And this is the beauty of the statement right here. This was the last sentence and my favorite part. They said, we are evaluating next steps with our legal counsel. Yes, go, 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 go. Actions have consequences. And I'm sorry if the DOJ isn't going to step up, if the Department of Justice and Pam Blondie is not going to step up and charge these people, then the church should definitely pursue other legal avenues via lawsuits. And I am for that. You go, guys. All right. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel, share this out. We do want to talk about Greenland today. Okay, so I got to the statement from the Minnesota church, the city's church in St. Paul. Got to their statement. They're pretty much saying like, okay, if the DOJ doesn't do anything, we're talking to our legal counsel. That's the big takeaway there. Now I want to get to Greenland, okay, because this move to acquire Greenland, a lot of people call me up and they're like, what does this mean? Is he allowed to do this? This is very bold. And, it's very illustrative of Donald Trump's second term. It's just boldness. Okay. He doesn't care what global leaders think. He doesn't care what the leftists think in this country. He is America first and America only. Okay. So with Russia and China, they have an interest in the Arctic here, okay? And it's been increasing for quite some time. The U.S. acquisition of Greenland is a smart strategic move and necessary in preventing China from becoming a superpower that we can't stop. Okay, this is very necessary. And it's a smart strategic move. The White House stated that Trump has discussed a range of options for possible acquisition, including buying the island, okay, which is really an autonomous territory of Denmark. It's like they don't really have, there's 50,000 people there, okay, and I think Springfield, Illinois is bigger than that, okay, so they don't really have sovereignty. They're just kind of like a product of Denmark. For Trump, this is obviously a matter of national security. We've talked about China taking over the Western Hemisphere, moving in on these South American countries like Venezuela, Colombia, Cuba. They've been moving in via these infrastructure deals. Okay, so they'll promise something like a high-speed rail for Venezuela, and they'll say, hey, we'll build this if you let us, set up a military base here. And they're in debt, these poor countries in South America, but they're trying to get close to the United States geographically. And for Trump, this is national security for the United States because Russia and China have been kind of chumming the waters here. They've been kind of sharks circling Greenland. And the prime minister has now come out, and that's what brings me to today's story. The prime minister is coming out, and, because of all this uncertainty, he's adding fuel to that uncertainty and really being an alarmist for no reason. And if I were him, I would be jumping at the chance to have an alliance with the United States or be a U.S. territory, especially considering the history here. Denmark has not historically treated the Greenlanders well. And I'll get to that here in just a second. But the Greenland Prime Minister, Jens Fredrik Nielsen, I don't know, he said that the Arctic Islands population and its authorities need to start preparing for a military invasion. And I don't know if we're going to do an invasion. That might be something that Donald Trump does. I'm not privy to those conversations, obviously. I think one day we're just going to wake up and we're going to find out that it is now a U.S. territory. I don't think that it's going to come to a military invasion because it just makes sense for it to be a U.S. territory. Like, do you really want China? Like, Greenlanders are probably thinking to themselves, please don't let China take us over. Please don't let Russia take us over. We would much prefer the generosity of the United States because these are authoritarian regimes. These are, authoritarian communist regimes, and they don't want China or Russia taking over Greenland, and the people of Greenland, the 50,000 so people there, don't want that. So on Tuesday, Greenland's prime minister, oh boy, Mr. Nielsen, spoke at a press conference, and he stated that the island's population might want to start preparing for a possible military invasion, presumably by the United States. He says it's not likely there will be a military conflict, but it can't be ruled out. Which, yeah, sure. I mean, but Donald Trump is not going to be kicking in the doors of these Eskimos, okay, and of women and children. He's not going to take them hostage. Like, that is not what's going to wind up happening, okay? There's a dog sled. Denmark has a dog sled, and NATO, I think they sent some troops there. What would wind up happening is the United States just kind of gets rid of that, their measly defense. It might not even come to like striking or anything like that. We could probably just simply, and then like their dog sled team, falls over. So Nielsen, he went on to say that the government of Greenland will form a task force of representatives to assist the population there with any disruptions to their daily lives amidst an invasion. The government is also coming up with guidelines that include advising people to have at least a 5-day supply of food in their homes. Greenland's former leader and current Minister of Finance, Mutbi Adjej, he chimed in and he said that Greenland is under a lot of pressure and we need to be ready for all scenarios. Okay, so apparently, to stave off a military invasion, to prevent some sort of U.S. invasion, Denmark, they were trying to act all tough and big, and they and 7 other NATO countries, they sent 34 troops to Greenland as a security measure. Like I said, that is not going to be nothing. That's nothing. We could just go and then they'd all topple over. Okay. So they call it Operation Arctic Endurance. This little security measure that NATO and Denmark kind of colluded in creating. Trump has threatened the nations that worked with Denmark to do this little security measure with new tariffs beginning February 1st. And now they're kind of freaking out about that. And I'll get to NATO here in just a second. We fund the whole damn thing. Okay. NATO, we've the disparity there is insane. I think since the 1980s, the funding gap is $22 trillion. Like we fund NATO. Okay. So for Denmark to go over there and cozy up to NATO, which is a product of the United States, and it's so gay. We just need to get rid of NATO. Because it's just us. Like anything that NATO does, for example, this little security measure, it's funded by us. Okay. This little security Operation Arctic Endurance, like that's funded by us, these 34 troops. So it's just all gay. And Trump was like, you know what? I'm just going to tariff you guys beginning February 1st. And now they're kind of freaking out about that. So they're tune has changed a little bit. But I think that the Prime Minister of Greenland is being a bit of an alarmist here. I don't think that Donald Trump is going to be sending United States guns ablazing into Greenland. And I don't think he's going to bust down people's homes and terrify women and children. No. The ultimate goal of the people of Greenland is to be an independent nation. Do you think they're going to be an independent nation under China? Do you think that they're going to be an independent nation under Russia? They haven't been an independent nation under Denmark. Okay. They have been treated very poorly under Denmark, under Danish rule. So Denmark has a history of forced sterilization on largely indigenous populations. And they want the Danish to live there in Greenland. Okay, so there have been medical experiments. There was actually a program that ran from the 50s through the 70s where Greenland children were forcibly sent to Denmark to be adopted or ended up in institutions without parental consent. And they attempted to assimilate them and create that and, kind of force the Greenlander out of them and force them into like this Danish and assimilate them into Danish culture. Okay. So it was actually called, the project was called Little Danes. Okay. And it was a social psychological experiment, started in 1951. 22 children were removed from their homes in Greenland by Danish authorities to be re-educated in Denmark. And they wanted to kind of create these elite, westernized elitists. And Denmark took those children. They were separated from their families, placed in foster care, lost their mother tongue, and they suffered long-term trauma. Now in 2022, that happened in the 1950s. It took Denmark years, decades, to officially apologize. So in 2022, Denmark officially apologized for the Danes, the Little Danes project. And there are 6 surviving individuals who were then paid a compensation for, being ripped from their families and entering into this reprogramming or this re-education program. So the children were compensated, but it took until 2022 for Denmark to officially apologize for that. That was only 4 years ago. Okay. And LSD experiments, this is more recent. That was the 1950s. Denmark, they were doing LSD experiments in psychiatry. So from the 60s to the 70s, 1960 to 1973 bouts, there were 400 psychiatric patients, people who struggled with mental illness. They were forced to take LSD and psilocybin. These are shrooms, hallucinogenic mushrooms, at this Fredericksburg hospital. Okay. And many of these patients suffered from adverse effects. You have 151 of those patients, of the 400 patients, receiving financial compensation. They finally came up with a law in the 1980s, 1986. This is semi-recent, okay, 1986, where they did an LSD damages law, Denmark. They said, sorry, Greenlanders, we took your mentally ill and we experimented on them with these psychedelic mushrooms and LSD, and we pumped them full of like these hallucinogenic drugs, and we, almost killed them all. You're mentally ill, but we apologize. Here's a 1986 law. We're gonna compensate out of the 400 patients we took. We're gonna compensate you, or compensate 151 of them. Okay, and I bring this up, like, this is not too, like, some of you were born in the 1980s, okay? Like, my mom was born in 1960. This is not 60 something. This is not something that is distant history. Okay, they were taking Greenlanders and experimenting on them. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. They did it first through the Little Danes Project, and then they did it with the mentally ill in the 1960s, 70s. Also in the 1960s, 70s, there was another thing that Denmark did, which was kind of gross. Contraceptive IUD campaign in Greenland. So investigations had revealed during this time period in the 1960s, 70s that the Danish health authorities placed these IUD devices in Greenland women and girls, some as young as the age of 13, IUDs. Okay, now IUDs are really, really bad for your health, reproductive health. And I'm not a doctor, but every woman I've ever talked to who has had one of these has had complications. Okay, either with reproduction or just their female anatomy and their hormones. It's terrible stuff. And they were putting these IUDs in young girls as young as 13. The Danish health authorities, okay, without any kind of knowledge or consent. And they did this in an effort to slow population growth there. So I don't know. You say that your people, Prime Minister from Greenland, that your people, you want your independence, you want your sovereignty. For years now, you haven't really had that with being an autonomous project, really, of Denmark. They've been experimenting on your people for years. Okay, so the statement from Greenland's head of state is probably also on purpose, because Trump has agreed to travel to Davos, Switzerland, for the World Economic Forum, and Greenland is most likely going to be a topic with uneasiness from those NATO nations. I think that this could be an attempt to try to make Trump look bad on the world stage. I think they're going to do everything that they can to make Trump look bad. Let me try to pull up his Truth Social post. I don't know if I pulled it, but Trump, yeah, here it is. I'll share this with you. Here we go. Here's the Trump Truth Social post. I had a very good telephone call with Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, concerning Greenland. I agreed to a meeting of the various parties in Davos, Switzerland. As I expressed to everyone very plainly, Greenland is imperative for national and world security. There can be no going back. On that, everyone agrees. The United States of America is the most powerful country anywhere on the globe by far. Much of the reason for this is a rebuilding of our military during my first term, which rebuilding continues at an even more expedited pace. We are the only power that can ensure peace throughout the world. Okay, and it is done quite simply through strength. President Donald J. Trump. That's what he put. Greenland is definitely happening. I think that him going to Davos for the World Economic Forum, Greenland's going to be a topic. I think that he agreed to this meeting. They're trying to probably attempt to make him look bad on the world stage. But I'm telling you, Donald Trump wants what's best for America, clearly. One of the best things about his second term here, even if he agrees to this meeting and they attempt to make him look bad or it doesn't go the way he wants, like, he doesn't care. He'll invade Greenland. He doesn't care what the world leaders are thinking. Okay, and he's going to invade it, and it's not going to be that big a deal because, like, they've got dog sleds, right? Essentially. So Greenland's Prime Minister, Mr. Nielsen here, he was a bit over the top in telling his citizens that they have to ready themselves for an invasion by the United States. Like, the Greenlanders are going to be safe. They're going to be fine. He can, be reasonably assured that no doors are going to be kicked in and prisoners are going to be taken anytime soon. I think the Prime Minister is being inflammatory here. And him going to Denmark, Greenland going to Denmark, and Denmark going to NATO is just ridiculous. NATO, the organization is the United States. Okay, so the spending gap on defense between the U.S. and other NATO countries since 1980, listen to this, take a guess, $22 trillion. So NATO, made up of several countries, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, made up of several different countries, and we're all supposed to be contributing. But guess what? The United States is contributing the most, and there is a spending gap on defense between the U.S. and NATO, other NATO countries, and that spending gap since 1980, $22 trillion with a T. So we should probably talk about NATO not being an organization anymore, since it's just literally the United States. Donald Trump in his Truth Social made it clear that we are the only ones that can kind of guarantee world peace. We're the ones that should be defending Greenland, not China, not Russia. We're capable of doing it. And we should talk about balancing that out, where the other countries contribute to NATO. But that's a topic for a different day. We should talk about how, the U.S. is the only buyer, or the only country that could take care of Greenland, that could provide, that would use this strategically located ice block. It's not just polar bears and ice. It's gold, by the way, and minerals, and we definitely need that. But the United States would be the only good stewards of that land. And the media acts like President Donald Trump randomly brought up Greenland one day. That's completely false. Greenland has been strategically important for hundreds and hundreds, nearly 100 years. And the U.S. has been involved there really since World War II. Okay, so this isn't something that's like, whoa, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants Greenland. No. Like, there have been offers to purchase Greenland all throughout history. During World War II, Denmark was occupied by Nazi Germany. U.S. stepped in during World War II to protect Greenland, so Germany couldn't use it as a base. So we did that during World War II. Why? Because Greenland sits between North America, Europe, and the Arctic. Okay, if you control Greenland, you control the shortest military route between continents. Okay, and that has never changed. Greenland has always been very strategically located. The sharks have been sniffing around. They've been shumming the waters or circling the waters of Greenland. When the Cold War started, the U.S. realized something very simple. Russian missiles don't fly over the ocean. They fly over the Arctic. Okay, if you look at it geographically. And what America did, we built the Thule Air Base, in northern Greenland in the 1950s. And what did it do? It detected Soviet missiles, gave early warning if the U.S. was about to be attacked during this Cold War with Russia. And this military base that we set up there in the 1950s in northern Greenland protected the U.S. and Canada. So Greenland, became a shield in the 1950s when it shielded Soviet invasion, Soviet missiles. It was a shield, and we used it as such. The base still exists today, by the way, because the threat really never went away after the Cold War, right? So when the Soviet Union collapsed, politicians, said that the danger was over. The danger's over, told the public that the danger was over. And Europe, what they've done, the European Union, they've cut military spending. Denmark reduced focus on Arctic defense. They were too busy, obviously, experimenting on the Greenland people. Europe cut military spending there. NATO has issued warnings. So the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the countries, they've issued warnings to Denmark quietly, but they didn't force Denmark to act and, have some sort of alliance where their defense of Greenland was forced upon them. Like, they weren't forced to come up with some sort of defense, Arctic defense. Warnings. So it's been neglected, Greenland. Meanwhile, you've got Russia and China, the two sharks. They're circling Greenland. Russia has rebuilt up its military. China is started, looking for influence, or not even started. They've got influence in the Western Hemisphere. They've taken over a lot of South American countries. They're buying up farmland here in the United States because we've got commie governors like Governor J.B. Pritzker, where he gives China money to set up shop and build electric vehicle batteries and data center batteries here in the United States, and take over farmland for solar plant projects and windmills. Like, China's influence is crazy, and Russia has rebuilt its military, and they're circling this. And some of the ice there in the Arctic has melted, and this makes Greenland even more attractive because that kind of opens up, because you can't really, ship things or military routes. You can't do that through big blocks of ice. So some of that ice has begun to melt. Russia and China knows that, and this is opening up new shipping, new military routes. Greenland matters, right? And Russia and China know that. And it's not because Donald Trump said, Greenland matters. Geography, weather patterns, these are things that are beyond Trump's control. So Greenland is geographically, strategically located. The Arctic is melting a little bit because, yes, the climate changes. who cares? We're told that the climate will change and that the earth is going to pass away, but the word will never pass away. I take great peace in that. I'm not a climate alarmist, but I can recognize that, yes, the ice is melting. In some places, it opens up the door for Russia and China, if they were to take over Greenland, for new military routes, new shipping routes. And they will already have, like, China already has an insane control on our supply chain, which is why Donald Trump is trying to issue these tariffs. The Supreme Court is trying to stop him because they hate America and they hate national security, really. Because if you control the supply chain, think about back to COVID when you couldn't get things. If China suddenly says, oh, we're going to stop, sending things over to you, that's why we need the tariffs, to encourage companies to come back and produce domestically, so that way we're safe and we have our supplies and we don't rely on a hostile foreign power for our goods. We are the largest consumer base. It is a privilege, and China doesn't act like it's a privilege to have the American consumer base. So they've got child labor going on, making our Nike shoes, and we should have those domestically produced here. Bottom line, anyway. So Russia, they have been silently moving in here on Greenland and being aggressive. Russia has opened up old Soviet bases and has armed them. China has called itself a near Arctic nation, even though it's not. China's way over here and Greenland's over here. Right? So they're coming in and they're like, yeah, we're pretty much like near, Greenland. It only makes sense geographically that we have Greenland because we're a near Arctic nation. You're not. China has actually invested, and this is the scary part, in mining. They've put ports there. They're doing research there. So they're moving in very silently, but not so silently. Okay. And what Donald Trump is doing, he's not inventing an issue here. Okay. He's saying out loud what Washington, NATO has known for decades, that if America doesn't secure Greenland, someone else will. Okay. And Washington has said that. NATO has said that. They've warned Denmark, hey, Denmark, you should probably have some sort of defense. You need to look into that. And Denmark was too busy experimenting on the Greenlanders to care about that kind of stuff. So this is just common sense. America, if we don't get it, somebody else that will. And I don't think that the Greenlanders are going to be treated well under a communist Chinese regime. So, these NATO elites, the Davos types, the NATO, the European Union, they have ignored warnings. Denmark has ignored warnings from NATO, quiet warnings from NATO. There was no forcing them to, get defense for Greenland. There has been underfunded defense there, and they have left a hole. Okay, these elites in NATO, European Union, Davos, they've left a hole in North American security. There's a gap there, and we need to make sure that it's defended, make sure that China and Russia and adversaries don't get it. And Trump is just saying, hey, we've ignored this for far too long. We need to secure Greenland, and we need to defend it because somebody else is going to get it, and it ought to be the good guys, right? But the elites mocked him. And that's why I say secretly, I think NATO is, is it negligence and incompetence, or is it deliberate? Do they want China to swoop in and to take over Greenland? Do they want our adversaries to swoop in? Because they're mocking Trump, and they're the ones who left this hole there. They're the ones who have ignored these warnings. And I don't know. I think that they're treasonous. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, it doesn't include China. The U.S. largely funds it. Why in the world are you pushing back on our acquisition of Greenland so hard, NATO, to the point where you're sending troops? Like, this is almost borderline treasonous. So Greenland, it is a missile shield. Like, you can detect if you set up a military base there, like we did when the Soviet Union was in its heyday. We could detect missiles not going over the ocean. They're going over the Arctic, from Russia. It could be used as a missile detector, Greenland. And, this is strategically and NATO knows this. Denmark was warned, and nothing was serious was done about this. So Trump hasn't created this crisis. He's not the one who's all of a sudden all interested in Greenland. Okay. He's just got the balls to point at it and say, like, hey, this is a problem. And, we're not going to survive if our adversaries get a hold of this thing. You guys won't. Right? We're providing defense for you. We're providing all the money. The spending gap, huge, $22 trillion since 1980, compared to other countries. Like, we're spending $22 trillion more than other NATO countries since the 1980s, like since 1980. That's insane. And there's a global power fight going on. You ought to want the United States, who provides you all the defense, European countries, European Union, NATO, like, provides all the money, right? You ought to want the United States, right? Not the adversaries. So, yeah, they're a bunch of treasonous asshats, if you ask me. And I want to be clear, like, history tells us that people in the United States has been wanting Greenland for all the way back since 1860s. Okay, and they're mocking Donald Trump for this, but literally every president recognized this, that Greenland needs to be bought by the United States. Bought or inquired or required, or it needs to be acquired by the United States. Okay, so people have been mocking Donald Trump, but I'm going to run through this. 1867, Andrew Johnson explored buying Greenland and Iceland, okay, right after Alaska. That was in 1867. World War II, FDR. The U.S. took over, like I said, Greenland's defense while Denmark was occupied by the Nazi Party. We took over Greenland to ensure that Germany did not take it over. So we kept it safe during World War II. 1946, Truman, he offered $100 million in gold to buy it. Cold War, you have Eisenhower, Kennedy. They put bases there, like I said, and put radar there to track missiles coming from the Soviet Union over the Arctic, protected the United States and Canada during the Cold War from the Soviet Union. Post-Cold War, you even had Clinton, George Bush, Barack Obama expanding Arctic security and missile defense, because the base still exists there today from the 1950s. They expanded Arctic security. And in 2019, you have Donald Trump. He said publicly what presidents have discussed for 150 plus years. This goes all the way back to 1860s. He was just publicly saying, like, yeah, we ought to take Greenland over, or we ought to acquire Greenland. And the U.S. didn't suddenly just want Greenland under President Donald Trump. That's what the point is that I'm making here today. Okay, we've constantly defended it. We've constantly been putting up bases there. And we've been doing this since the 1800s. And Trump didn't invent this. Okay. He's just kind of saying the quiet part out loud. So let me share with you. I want to share this clip of Trump. And then I'll share with you what the Greenlanders actually think about Donald Trump. They actually want Donald Trump to come in and acquire Greenland. Take a look.
Russian threats is important to you. Why are you upset about NATO allies thinking that, more seriously Greenland by holding military exercises?
Well, that wasn't a military. They sent a few people, and they say they sent them not for me, but to guard against Russia. But NATO's been warning Denmark for about 20 years now, longer than that, 25 years. They've been warning Denmark about the Russian threat. And it's not only Russia, it's also China. So we'll see what happens. But let's put it this way. It's going to be a very interesting Davos. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good.
Okay, so he's going to Davos, and he essentially said what I said during this entire show, that Russia and China, they want Greenland. And, the reporter had asked him what he thought about NATO sending this security measure, this operation. And Trump goes, they said that it was because, Russia, and they did it because of Russia, these 34 military troops. And I think Trump gets it that NATO is like treasonous as well. You could kind of hear he didn't say it. I think that they sent the troops there because they as a way of like saying, hey, United States, don't invade, because you've got the prime minister out there saying the Americans are coming, bunker down in your houses. And you got Denmark, going to NATO for this little operation and asking for troops. Although NATO is largely funded by us, I think it's just treasonous BS. But he said that NATO sent the troops there as a way of deterring Russia from acquiring Greenland. Okay, whatever you say, NATO. That's my opinion. But he said, look, it's not just Russia, it's China. And, we're going to have this meeting in Davos. And, the mainstream media claims that Greenlanders hate Donald Trump. That couldn't be further from the truth. Here's a video straight from Greenland. Folks are rocking MAGA hats. They're wearing their MAGA hats. Okay, like I said, traditionally, Denmark, historically, not even that far back in history, modern history tells us that Denmark has treated the Greenlanders poorly. It is total BS that they don't like Donald Trump. They are shouting, God bless you. He's the greatest on earth. They're fed up with Denmark's, rule over them, and they are craving U.S. protection. And the polls are hitting 78%. Wanting to join America. Okay, so 78% of Greenlanders want to join America. Like, Trump's vision here is winning hearts, and it's time to make Greenland great again. Check out this video. The mainstream media won't show you this.
If you could say anything to Donald Trump, what would you tell him?
God bless you. You are so strong, and we love you so much. Yeah.
Donald Trump.
You want to be part of America? You do.
You do.
You do.
You do.
Also, what do you think?
I have a feeling this guy does too.
Do you want Donald Trump to buy Greenland?
Yes.
Donald Trump have Greenland. More protection. More life. More. So beautiful land. This job.
God bless you, and you are great.
Your guys' message for President Trump.
President Trump, he is the greatest on earth. Yes. Of course.
You want America to buy Greenland?
Yep.
And what do you think is going to get better in Greenland if Trump buys the country?
Education system healthcare system.
So you're not a fan of what Denmark has in place for you guys right now?
Denmark, they don't take care of us.
Do you think you would be better off associated with the U.S. rather than Denmark?
Do we need to make Greenland great again?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
See you soon, Donald.
There you have it, folks. Nobody in the mainstream media is going to show you that video. Nobody in the mainstream media is going to tell you about the human atrocities that have happened. Denmark has been experimenting for decades on the Greenlanders. And they didn't really apologize for the psilocybin, the psychedelic mushrooms. They took their mentally ill and they were experimenting on them. They apologized for that in the 1980s, 1986, but they didn't even apologize for what they did to the children, the Greenland children, where they abducted them from their homes and tried to assimilate them and re-educate them. And it was called the Little Danes Project. They didn't even apologize that until 4 years ago. And I'm sure the Greenlanders haven't forgotten. So I do want to shift gears. Let's talk about Don Lemon. And I opened up the show talking about how this church invasion is going to be a pivot point. Okay. And what do I mean by that? Well, there was an activist stunt pulled over the weekend at this St. Paul church, the city's church. Okay. And it involved former CNN journalist personality Don Lemon, this activist stunt. And, on social media, it's clear that he wasn't just documenting, he wasn't just doing a journalism, he was participating. Okay. And the media apparatus, the mainstream media, they have been notably quiet about this activist stunt where they invaded this church and scared children who were worshiping Jesus on that Sunday. The mainstream media has been quiet. Now, I think that this event is going to be a crucial pivot point in the way our nation is headed. So I talked to you about this group. Oh gosh, what is it? Racial Justice something network or something. It's a Black Lives Matter movement group. Okay, it's an organized group, nonprofit. They convened on Sunday to bull rush a church service in the city under the guise of protesting ICE actions in Minnesota, because apparently the pastor there had connections to the agency, the ICE agency. It's all kind of funky. It was truly a disturbing spectacle. The videos, I've played them here all week. Now, Don Lemon, this spectacle was really, and I'll show you what Don Lemon was doing outside the parking lot or in the parking lot prior to this stunt and prior to the spectacle. And all of a sudden after this happened, this rush on the church, he's kind of been stuck in this twist of explanations surrounding his involvement. He's been trying to say that I was just there doing journalism, right? So initially, before talk of the FACE Act being violated started to pop up, he was giddy. He was posting segments, and he pledged to film the activities live on his account. He joined the mob in the church and even conducted an interview with the pastor on the scene. The pastor had asked him to leave, and he said, no, we've got a right to be here. These people have got a right to be here. And, this guy is obviously desperate for relevancy. We know that he was fired from CNN. And this is probably his way of sparking viral interest, resuscitating his dying career. But very quickly after this happened, Don started to kind of massage his narrative here as to why he was, you know, and, you know, negative reactions started to come out, talks about how this potentially violated the FACE Act, started to emerge. And, you know, the FACE Act is designed to protect places, healthcare clinic, or the reproductive healthcare clinics. It's called Abortion Clinic Entrance Act. But in Section 2 of this law, places of worship are also covered, and that's not what Democrats would like you to think. So Lamont, he suddenly started taking a new approach. He tried to suggest that he was just there as a journalist, an observer, with no prior notification that the event was going to take place. Okay. And there is a small problem here for Don, is that he was there ahead of the organized trespassing. And he was touting what would happen inside the church and, you know, who had been behind the planning. So I want to play this clip for you. Don Lamont, prior to the invasion, he was on the, like, this shows intent. This is the opening to his live stream. This is an admission. And if the DOJ doesn't take this as an admission, or as, you know, hey, this was his intent of being there that day, shame on the DOJ. But let's take a look. Here we go. Just real quick, I gotta jump in. That's what we're doing here. Oh, no audio on the clip? Oh, no. I don't know why that is happening. I'll just break it down for you. Here in this clip, this is the beginning of his live stream. I'm not sure why there's no audio. Sorry, folks. I'll break it down what he said. He said, you know, this woman who's leading this Black Lives Matter movement organization, it's like Racial Social Justice Network or whatever it's called. It's a nonprofit organization. And they were doing this during the George Floyd riots, where they come to places kind of gotcha style, or you know, pop up, and then they kind of catch people off guard. And she orchestrated this church attack, and he was saying we that entire clip, right? And I mean, he knew what she was planning. He goes, I can't tell you all of it. I mean, this was an admission. And it goes to show you that Don Lamont was not simply there as a journalist observer, but rather a part of this orchestrated attack. So Don Lamont was actually included in her praise, by the way, on X. So here is the, or Facebook, I think this was a Facebook post. So here it is. She posted this. She posted everybody involved and thanked them. Okay. So why would you thank a journalist for observing? Right. He's got Don Lamont. She's got, you know, everybody involved here. And you guys can see this post. She tags Don Lamont. So this suggests to me that he was not merely a journalist, but rather a part of the orchestrated attack. And he even says, we are going to go in there, and they're outside in the parking lot of this church. It was planned. It was planned. And what makes this so consequential? Okay, and I opened up the show talking about how this is the pivot point, is that there is a federal crime here. I've read the statutes. If not, the KKK Act, if not the FACE Act, there's something called the Church Arson Prevention Act. And I think that there's crimes here. And that requires full accountability. The commission of a federal crime and the severity of it. This is interrupting, obstructing, interfering with worship in a place of worship. And the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dillon, and the DOJ, they're saying they're going to take swift action here, including against Mr. Lamont, and potentially bring about charges. Now, we've seen lax enforcement. Okay, assuming they're all justified under the law in question, this is needed. Okay, this investigation is needed. Charges are needed because if we see lax enforcement, if we see Harmeet Dillon, the DOJ, sitting on their hands, what this is going to cause is more lawlessness. Okay, it's going to encourage more lawlessness, and we're going to see something similar to 2020. George Floyd riots. This is an election year, 2026. And I'm not being hyperbolic here. I think that we're going to see that level of lawlessness again. It's going to start in Minnesota, and then it's just people are going to be invading churches everywhere. And we've got severe legal problems in what took place on Sunday. And, the Minnesota Attorney General, and I played the clip yesterday, Keith Ellison, he was on with Don Lemon the day after the invasion of the church. And he went as far as to say, not only do I not see a crime committed, but he said, people who are citing the FACE Act are citing, they don't know what they're talking about because that only applies to abortion clinics. Okay. In fact, he went as far as to encourage more of this type of behavior in that video with Don Lemon when he, made an appearance with Don Lemon the day after. So this is an amazing stance for the head law enforcement officer to take. Okay, he's the head law enforcement officer in the state of Minnesota. And, the day after he was on with Don Lemon, but the day before, or the day of the actual church invasion, he was also on with Don Lemon on the ground there. Okay, that's a pretty astounding declaration, by the way, that there were no laws broken that day. And he said that the FACE Act is reserved for protecting those seeking reproductive rights, and that only applies to abortion care clinics. Okay, that's not true. And he says, quote, with this interview that he did with Don Lemon, he says, how they are stretching these laws to people protesting in a church is beyond me. Okay. So he says that stretching the FACE Act, but the FACE Act, and I've read this for you all week, says that you can't intimidate, you can't interfere. The Church Arson Prevention Act says you can't obstruct worship. But this says you can't interfere or intimidate one's religious freedom in a place of worship. The Church Arson Prevention Act goes further. I don't think it necessarily has to be a place of worship. It's just a church. So a church could take place outside. If you obstruct somebody practicing in their God-given rights, worship, religious freedom, if you obstruct that in any kind of way, I think that the Church Arson Prevention Act takes it a step further than the FACE Act. But nobody's really stretching anything, Mr. Ellison, because the legislation, black and white, specifically says places of worship are included in the FACE Act. I think it's weird too. In 1994, when the FACE Act was, implemented, they elevated abortion clinics to positions, and that's what the gripe was about it back then. everybody thought it was strange that abortion clinics, the entrances of abortion clinics, by the way, were elevated to the same status as a religious place of worship, like a church. Okay. And I think it's strange. It just goes to show you that Democrats truly think that these places are places of worship and that they are taking part in a religious tradition. It's a tenet of their religion to kill children. Okay, and that just goes to show you that they're satanic and they celebrate death, and that these places are where they can practice their religion. Okay. Taking out children, which is the antithesis, and we've talked about this, to Christianity. Think of King Herod. Think of Pharaoh. In the Old Testament, Moses, he floated down a river, folks, to avoid death because there was a decree, kill all the Hebrew boys. Okay. And he had to float down a river to save his life. His sister followed him down the river. And then you had King Herod. That's what led Mary and Joseph to go to Egypt. Angel told them, like, hey, you got to take him out of here because there's a decree killing all these boys because he's freaking out about the Messiah or a king being born. So, yeah, that's just the antithesis to Christianity. FACE Act elevates abortion clinics to a place of worship. I thought it was weird. It's weird in 1994. People thought it was weird. But it extends to places of religious worship. It's not just abortion clinics, okay? Like Ellison would say. And I'm going to help out the leading lawman, the attorney general of that state, and I'm going to provide a summary. Here it is, the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances of 1994. Section 2, intentionally injuring, intimidating, or interfering, or attempting to injure, intimidate, or interfere any person by force, threat of force, or physical obstruction, exercising or seeking to exercise First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship. Place of religious worship. I'm reading the law. Okay. There's a provision within the law subjects anyone engaged in following to criminal penalties, including imprisonment. Okay, so this is part of the law. Criminal penalties include imprisonment. So yeah, there you have it. So I don't know what he's talking about. This is very basic knowledge and very basic language. So by him saying that the FACE Act doesn't extend to religious worship places, he's most definitely trying to protect Lamont here. And he's trying to protect the group that stormed this church. Okay, he's on with Don Lamont after the fact. And, you know, I think that Ellison had foreknowledge of the event because he was there the day of, speaking with Don Lamont, the day of the church intrusion, the invasion, and, you know, considering the lines of communication displayed between these two men, Don Lamont and Ellison, the attorney general there, it seems very likely that not only did Don Lamont know about the planned event, he was thanked for being there by the event coordinator. He constantly and consistently in his opening video for his live stream said, we're going in. Okay. But the communication displayed between these two men, Ellison and Lamont, it's likely that not only did Don Lamont know what was planned, but maybe even Ellison knew what was planned. Keith Ellison. So let's take a look at this. This was on the day of, before the actual invasion happened. This video, hopefully there's audio. Let me know in the comment section. I'm having a rough time. We have our internet is down and I'm having a rough time with tech today. Tech monkeys. All right, take a listen. Okay. Sorry. I don't know. You just hear noise. Yeah, I don't know. I'll just have to summarize what went down in the clip. Okay, so that was them on Sunday. And there was a discussion between the two men. And they were talking about the Renee Good. And, I think that Ellison here, just in speaking and the communication between Don Lemon prior to the event and Ellison, I don't think that we should not look at him. The DOJ should also investigate to see what he knew, how he participated in the planning of this church invasion, if at all. Because the communication between Don Lemon and Ellison is clear leading up to that event. So that needs to be looked at. And Ellison wasn't the only lawmaker there in the area unconcerned with the lawlessness on display. I told you Ellison, he doesn't even think that this was a violation of the FACE Act. He is gone as far as to say that the FACE Act doesn't apply to places of religious worship, which tells me he's running cover for Lemon and these churchgoers or in these church agitators and covering it up. He doesn't even think that any kind of crime happened. And then he's going further to interpret, not even misinterpret, but blatantly tell people that the FACE Act doesn't include places of religious worship. There was another lawmaker there that day, and he wasn't alone in that area. Ellison, investigative reporter Luke Rozak, he discovered that there was a local political figure there among the protest mob. Okay, so he wasn't just a sympathizer with the activists, but rather he was a participant. So he was a part of the mob. This is a local lawmaker. The top staffer for Hennepin County's Soros-backed prosecutor was among the protesters, Jamal Lundy. Okay, and he works as intergovernmental affairs coordinator for Hennepin County Attorney Mary Morarty, and is married to St. Paul City Council member Annika Bowie. Okay, so Jamal Lundy was there among the protesters, and he's running for, or the white, or the person he's married to, Annika, is running for a seat in the state legislature as a Democrat. He is running. Sorry. I got confused. Jamal Lundy was there, and he's running as a state rep he's running as a state rep for Minnesota, the state legislature, as a Democrat. Okay. So this is crazy. And his wife is a city council member. He works for the Hennepin County attorney, Mary Morarty. So, I mean, this is a top guy in local government there, and he's seeking higher political office. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at a level of authoritarian permissiveness. So not only does Keith Ellison say that this isn't against the law, he encourages more of this type of behavior, but he also miscites it's not a mistake. He's just blatantly telling you that the FACE Act does not include places of religious worship, which tells you that he's running cover for these people. Then you've got more lawmakers, top lawmakers in that area, who are not only permissive of this behavior, but participating in it. Okay, and I'd question Keith Ellison's participation, being that he was with Don Lemon on his podcast shortly before the church raid happened. Okay, so this is a tipping point. Should Lemon and his activist crew end up avoiding charges over their actions, it is going to wind up George Floyd 2.0, 2020. This is going to cause more worse actions. It's going to cause terror in the streets from these activist goons, because they are not only emboldened by people like Don Lemon, but they are emboldened by authority. Keith Ellison giving them a pass. Lawmakers participating with them in these lawlessness acts. So we are seeing the legal standards tested daily already. There's outward defiance, open rebellion. I've talked about that. It's, what is it, January 21st, 7:36, and we still have yet to see Donald Trump invoke the Insurrection Act. I'm waiting. But they're in open defiance of the United States. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. You've got Brandon Johnson, Governor J.B. Pritzker here in Illinois. They're encouraging further defiance. Videotape the ICE agents, right? They're encouraging further defiance of our federal laws. So from sanctuary cities refusing to cooperate with federal agents, then outwardly working against law enforcement of our immigration laws and outwardly working against the enforcement of our immigration laws. These people are, eroding our democracy or our constitution, our representative constitutional republic, and they are taking a sledgehammer to the United States. We have laws, you enforce those laws. When you have authority breaking laws and saying it's okay to break laws, you are participating in the erosion of our society. And this is going to be bad. We see lawmakers now coming forward, denying the existence of legislation. He's denying that FACE Act includes places of religious worship. And then you have those same lawmakers possibly participating in violations of certain statutes. Keith Ellison communicating with Don Lemon on the ground prior to the invasion. And if this is not addressed swiftly, you have lawmakers who are seeking higher office and our top officials, top local politicians in that area. They're participants in the invasion. If this is not addressed swiftly, you are going to see mob rule. And the agitators and Don Lemon, they need to be held accountable in a very public way. And the media needs to get it together, and they need to cover the illegalities here. Do what I'm doing, where I'm sharing with you how, it was Don Lemon, Keith Ellison on the ground. You had this other local lawmaker, Jamal Lundy, who was there, and he was a participant of it, and he's running for higher office, but he's working with the Hennepin County attorney. So he's a government top guy in local government there in St. Paul, and he's married to a St. Paul City Councilwoman. So, we've got authority saying it's okay to break laws. And that needs to be dealt with in a very public way. Otherwise, our society, the way United States functions, is going to just crumble. And the mainstream media needs to cover these illegalities. And they need to do their job. All right. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I'm going to take a quick break, subscribe to the channel. I'll be back, and we're going to talk about Illinois State University. State audit has come out. And let me just say this plainly right out the gate. If a private company had done this, if they had failed audits for more than a decade, this stretches back to 2011, if they had exposed customer data, if they had violated the law, if they had done all of that and then also kept asking investors for money, they would be shut down, they would be sued. Investors would no longer invest in that private company. But when it's a public university and it's taxpayer funded and it's all wrapped up with bureaucracy and prestige, failure is rewarded. Okay, because this is public sector, it's rewarded rather than punished. So I'm going to be right back. Smash that like button. I'll be taking a quick break.
Sometimes God stops you cold, not with a whisper, with a punch to the soul. Saul wasn't looking for Jesus. He was hunting Christians. He had power, position, and a mission. Then God knocked him to the dirt. A light from heaven. A voice that knew his name. Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? That moment wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was a spiritual ambush. God still works like that. He steps into your mess, interrupts your pride, confronts the man you've become when you're wandered too far. Maybe you're building your own kingdom. Maybe your fists are up, fighting battles God never called you to. Or maybe you're just running hard in the wrong direction. But then comes the voice, clear, heavy, holy. Why are you persecuting me? Jesus doesn't want your behavior fixed. He wants your heart surrendered. Saul didn't get a lecture. He got a mission. Get up, go to the city. You'll be told what to do. That's the way of real manhood in the kingdom. Surrender first, then orders. You don't need every answer right now. You need to obey the voice. Follow the light. Rise up off the dirt and walk the road God lays out for you. Some roads break you to rebuild you, and that's exactly what Jesus wants. You want to train like a warrior? You need fuel like one. Patriot Pump is clean, powerful pre-workout that won't let you quit halfway. Just like the mission God gives you, it's not about the hype. It's about the grit. Fuel up, lock in, get after it.
Hey, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. I so do appreciate you being here. We've got one more story for you. It's based in Illinois. We are talking about Illinois State University. There was a state audit. Diane Benjamin, she kind of exposed this, and I was reading through the state audit, and I was like, wow. This is crazy because a private company, if they were to do this, and I just want to open this, okay? If a private company had failed this badly for more than a decade, because a lot of these problems or a lot of these failures, they're repeat failures is what they call them, repeat weaknesses at Illinois State University, and they stretch back to 2011. If a private company were to do this, if they were to be in violation of law, okay, then and they kept asking, this private company kept asking investors to invest in the company, they would be laughed out, a laughing stock, and they would be shut down. Okay, if they continued to fail audits, they continued to expose customer data, they'd be shut down, or worse, they'd probably be sued into oblivion. But when it's a public university, when it's taxpayer funded, like it's not real, and you know, they're all wrapped up in prestige and protected by bureaucracy. And their failure actually gets rewarded in this scenario. So Illinois State University failing their state audit. At least that's what I would say. They failed it. But yet we've got lawmakers, you know, they showed up there. I'd have to pull up pictures of JB and Sharon Chung and Dave Kaler, right? They're all there and they're all taking pictures, $80 million or something crazy like that. They're all writing checks, and the administrators are ignoring the law, but yet they keep receiving checks. They keep receiving raises. They keep receiving money for their stupid little pet projects. Look, and this isn't partisan. This isn't personal. This is about trust. And this is about trust being abused. Okay, so according to the Illinois Auditor General's fiscal year 2024 audit, ISU wasn't just a little off. No. They had 3 Category 1 material weaknesses. Material weaknesses are the worst. Category 1 is the worst. They had 3 of those. They had 10 Category 2 significant deficiencies. And this is what you need to remember, that this stretches back. They have repeat deficiencies, repeat weaknesses that stretch back to 2011. Okay, so this is not an accident. This is not a mistake. It's not isolated. It's never been corrected. This is a systemic failure. And the audit found weak cybersecurity controls. Okay, cybersecurity breaches, they take down like Lincoln College. Let me look this up because I kind of forget the details, but it was cybersecurity, a breach that happened, closed in 2022 due to financial struggles that were exacerbated by a ransomware attack. Okay. So this was so bad, the ransomware attack, that financially they couldn't recover from it. And ultimately, I think that's what led to Lincoln College closing. And it's really sad. Lincoln College closed after 157 years. And the Lincoln College officials at the time of closure in 2022, they were saying that, yeah, it was a little bit of COVID, but it was also this cybersecurity attack or cybersecurity attack where everybody's data was breached. But the audit found for ISU in 2024, for fiscal year 2024, not only weak cybersecurity controls, which can, and we've seen, destroy colleges like Lincoln College, they weren't able to financially recover from a cybersecurity attack or cyber attack. They had weak cybersecurity controls, which can lead to a cyber attack, which can financially destroy you as a college university. And we've seen that, but they also violated state law and federal laws. And we're going to talk about that. They are failing to protect student data. They're in non-compliance with outside employment disclosure laws. So I'll get to what that means as well. They are also failing federal credit card marketing protection laws, okay, for students. There's federal law out there that protects students from marketing from credit card companies that are preying on them. You have to set up policy, and ISU hasn't done this, to ensure that their data doesn't get into the hands of marketers. Okay. So these are baseline legal requirements, by the way. These are not complicated rules. They just aren't following the rules. Yet they get rewarded for failing and not following the rules. I don't know about you, but if you've got kids, okay, and the rule is you have to do your homework or you have to brush your teeth before bed, whatever it is. I don't know about you, but if your kids don't follow those rules, they don't get rewarded, right? So State Representative Paul Jacobs, he's quoted in the Center Square. He sits on the Higher Education Appropriations Committee, and he sits on the Cybersecurity Committee. Okay, and he said what every parent should be alarmed by. Parent of these college students, every college student should be alarmed by this. He said, like, hey, cybersecurity, if those controls are not in place and these, college students are at risk for a cyber attack, these student records, which could include social security numbers, could be put out there. And, I want you to let that sink in. We're living in 2026, damn it. Okay. Data breaches are everywhere. A couple of days ago on the show, I talked about the Illinois Department of Human Services experiencing not even a data breach. I mean, they left it open on a public website. Very incompetent because their privacy security settings were not adjusted correctly, either internally or through a third party. We don't know. But there's been data breaches. There's been cyber attacks at the Attorney General office, IDES. They hired an outside contractor, no bid contractor, that leaked all of this unemployment data. Like, we're living in a time right now, 2026, where ransomware attacks happen. Ransomware attacks target schools. They target hospitals. We saw that with Lincoln. There was a cyber attack, and Illinois State University seems to not give a hoot. Okay. They can't even get cybersecurity down. Okay. And to make sure that their students' data is protected, including their social security numbers. Okay. So when the data gets exposed, because at this point, if it's decades of no cybersecurity controls, It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So when the data gets exposed, who's going to pay for it? You and me, not the administrators who are paid $200,000 some dollars, a year, or $300,000 something dollars a year. These administrators at ISU get paid very well. Not the bureaucrats who get paid very well. You're going to pay for it. Okay. You're going to pay once the data is exposed. You're going to have to pay as a taxpayer through lawsuits, compensation. They're going to have to make those students whole. We've seen it at a state level where the data breaches happen. And in response, what the state does, they say, okay, we'll give you like free credit monitoring, identity theft, like LifeLock. You get that for free. Really, it's the taxpayers paying for that service for you to be compensated for your data being exposed. There's going to be lawsuits. We're going to have to pay the settlements. It's the taxpayers, okay, through higher taxes. In order for them to pay the settlements, ISU is going to collect more in taxes. They're going to go ask the state government for cover, okay? And here's where Representative Jacobs, he asked this question, and I love it. Why should they be getting more money, ISU, instead of fixing the problems they've got? Okay, recently I think they got like $80 million or something like that for God knows what. But why would you be getting more money if you can't even get the basics right? Right? If you can't protect data, if you can't follow disclosure laws, having your professors disclose if they are working in the private sector. And I'll get to that disclosure law here in just a second. Outside employment disclosure laws, there's laws there. If you can't comply with those, if you can't comply with the audits and take corrective action that the Illinois Auditor General's office tells you to take, why should the taxpayers be forced to fund your expansions and your raises and your projects, ISU? Why? They fail upward, and they don't fail upward by accident. Government institutions, okay? They fail upward because nobody holds them accountable. And, this is what people don't realize. You're just getting screwed and screwed and screwed over by these government institutions, not just ISU, but the DHS, the IDES, the IDOC. These have all had data breaches, and you, the taxpayer, have had to cover the compensation of those victims who have had their data exposed. Right? So something that the audit found, and we're going through this piece by piece, they found that the faculty members at ISU, the professors, they're working outside jobs and they're not properly disclosing that, which is in direct violation of Illinois law. Okay, so there's a law that exists, and there's a reason why this law exists. So say a professor is conducting research through the university, okay? That research is funded by the taxpayers, okay? And then say that professor works in the private sector as a consultant, maybe for, I don't know, some private company, okay? And there's a potential conflict of interest there, because what if that research is used in their private employment space? Okay, it's kind of similar to if you're working at a company and you start printing your wedding invitations using the company copier, okay, the company printer. That's kind of like what that's like, okay? Personal, private life, you're, using the company for your personal private life. And that's potentially, there's patents, there's millions of dollars involved here. Research, if you use research and then they come up with a product that they patent, and that's not, through the university, but it was the university research, like not good stuff. Okay. If they invent, say a product, using that research, like, would the law exist to protect the university, protect state and the taxpayer? Okay, we're paying for that research through the university that then can't be used in the private sector. That research has to be used or it has to be disclosed that it's going to be used in the private sector. That's what this is all about. Disclosure laws. Okay. And the professors aren't disclosing that they have private sector jobs as well. And that can't happen under the law, right? You have to disclose if you're working for a private company. So there's lawsuits, that opens the door for lawsuits, conflicts of interest. The audit also found that ISU failed to comply with the Federal Credit Card Marketing Act. Now, students' information, they don't have a policy in place. That's where they're out of compliance with this Federal Credit Card Marketing Act. They're told, ISU, through this law, hey, you have to set up a policy. They don't have a policy set up. So whether or not they're doing it, like actually protecting the students' data from these marketing places, I don't know. They just don't have a policy set up. So I'd imagine no policy, then it's not actually getting done. So students' information has to be properly protected and can't be shared with businesses or creditors, right? Young adults are already very vulnerable. They're drowning in debt, and they're being treated as marketing assets, not people. And the university has an obligation via this federal law to protect those young adults. And again, this is not gray area. This is a statutory requirement. You have to protect student data so that the marketers don't get it, so that way they can't prey on the young adults who are dealing with debt. Okay. And, the lawmakers, they're not looking closely enough at these universities. The Auditor General comes out with this report every year, and every year it stinks. And the lawmakers just kind of brush past it. Oh yeah, they got a bad review. Look, there's more the lawmakers can be doing. They can be withholding appropriations from the university until they get their stuff together. Okay. And that's not happening. They need to withhold those appropriations until they fix their cybersecurity issues, their controls, until they're in compliance with the outside disclosure laws and the Federal Credit Card Marketing Act. Okay. So oversight isn't just weak, it's absent. Lawmakers need to withhold appropriations from ISU until they get it together. And Luke 16:10 says this: whoever can be trusted with very little can be also trusted with much. Whoever is dishonest with very little will be dishonest with much. Illinois State University has been trusted with student data, taxpayer money, and this audit shows that they fail at the basics. Proverbs 27:23 says this: be sure to know the condition of your flocks. Give careful attention to your herds. So this applies to government as just as much as shepherds as you. You have to pay close attention to your finances, to your life, to your flocks, to your family. The government needs to pay close attention to their herds, their flocks, what's going on. So if leaders refuse to know or ignore the condition of what they've been entrusted with, they forfeit moral authority. Okay. Accountability is not cruel. Oversight is not hostility. Transparency is not an attack. It's stewardship. And the taxpayers should not continue paying for your systems, your broken systems. We don't owe you our blind trust. These institutions answer to we the people. It's not the other way around. Okay, that's going to be it for the show. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. So do appreciate you being here. We'll be back again tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. It has been the Conservative Cat Show. Subscribe today. I'll catch you tomorrow.